Welcome to our channel. Today you will hear a story that will touch you to the core. What destroys love the fastest? Money, family secrets, or fear for the children's future? Lily's story will show how one decision can destroy everything that seemed unshakable. Are you ready to find out what happened next? Stay with us until the end. When I met Sean, it felt like fate had finally smiled upon me. I was deeply immersed in a project that consumed all my time and energy. But this project had become my life. It was my salvation, my chance to break free from the routine and secure a future for my children. After years of struggle, I finally achieved success, signed lucrative contracts, and made my first significant profit. Everything I had dreamed of seemed to be within my grasp. But there was no time for personal life. All my energy went into work and taking care of my family. My friends were also busy, and relationships were left somewhere in the past. I was ready to leave that part of my life behind, thinking that love was something unattainable. But then Sean appeared. At that moment, I never imagined that the person who came into my life would change it so drastically. It seemed like a breath of fresh air to me. Sean was not only smart and charming, but also supported me in everything. We understood each other without words, laughed at the same jokes, and I felt myself drawn to him. He wasn't bothered that I was consumed by work, nor did he demand the impossible from me, as my ex had, who thought I should always look fashionable and glamorous. With Sean, I could be myself, in comfortable sneakers and cozy sweaters. He worked at a small government organization, and he had basic office skills. At the time we met, Sean was job hunting and temporarily without income. But neither of us cared much about money back then. What mattered most was that we were together, sharing dreams and hopes. It seemed to me that our connection was sincere and deep, based not on material wealth, but on real feelings. And so, after a few years, we started discussing the future seriously. Marriage seemed like the natural progression of our relationship, and I thought we were moving in the same direction. Sean suggested we talk about a prenuptial agreement. Honestly, I had long understood that it was necessary, especially now that my business was thriving. I saw it as a way to protect both of us and preserve what we had built. But at that moment, I had no idea that this conversation would be the beginning of the end. We agreed to meet with a lawyer to discuss the details of the prenuptial agreement. I saw nothing scary in this. It was just a formal step to protect both of us. We had already discussed what each of us would like to include in the agreement. I knew clearly that my company should remain my legacy for my children. It wasn't just a business to me. I had built it from scratch, invested years of my life into it, and I wanted it to be there for my children in the future. Sean fully agreed with this. Or at least, that's what it seemed. When we went to the first meeting with the lawyer, something changed. Sean was tense, silent, and when the lawyer began explaining the terms of the agreement, he suddenly interrupted, asking sharp questions. This surprised me, but I decided not to pay much attention to it. Perhaps he was just nervous. However, at the second meeting, things got much worse. When we sat down at the negotiation table, Sean brought his own lawyer, although he had never mentioned hiring one. I was stunned. Not only had he not warned me, but he also started behaving as if we were on opposite sides of the barricades. All our previous agreements seemed forgotten. Sean began demanding a share of my company for his daughter from his first marriage. This suggestion hit me like a bolt of lightning. What? I asked, trying to understand if I had misheard. You want your daughter to have a share in my company? Yes, it's fair, Sean replied coldly, without looking me in the eye. If we're going to be a family, she should also have her part. That's the future I want for her. I felt the ground slipping away from under my feet. But I built this company long before we met. It's a legacy for my children. I never discussed the possibility of including anyone else in it. Sean just shrugged. His lawyer immediately picked up the conversation, arguing that it was a reasonable decision for all parties. At that moment, I realized that Sean was playing a completely different game from the one I thought we were playing together. He was ready to sacrifice our relationship for his own benefit. We left the office, and I tried to start a conversation. Sean, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? We agreed on other things. He stopped, sighed, and looked at me with obvious irritation. You're too focused on yourself and your children. You don't even think about my daughter, and that shows who you really are. I just want her to be protected. But I love her, Sean, I replied, feeling the anger rising in my chest. I'm willing to help her. I already agreed to pay for her education, help with housing, give her money for a car. But sharing my company? That's too much. I didn't raise her, and she will never see me as a mother. She has a mother who already provides her with everything she needs. Sean stared at me, then sarcastically smirked. Now you're showing your true colors, Lily. All this time, you've been against her. Those words cut through me like a knife. How could he think that? I had always tried to be fair, to help, even when it wasn't my obligation. But now I saw, Sean's priorities had changed. Sean was no longer the person I knew and loved. After that meeting, the tension between us only grew. We could no longer talk calmly. Every time I tried to discuss our situation, Sean reacted either with sarcasm or cold indifference. He was no longer the man I loved. I didn't recognize him. There was no trace of the warmth that had once been there. One evening, after yet another unpleasant conversation, I decided to gather my thoughts and try to talk to him openly one more time. I sat across from him in the living room and tried to start with what was truly important for both of us. Sean, we were happy together. What happened? Why have we changed so much? I asked, struggling to hold back tears. I couldn't believe that our love was falling apart before my eyes. He looked at me coldly, as if I were a stranger to him. You've changed, Lily. You've become obsessed with your money and your company. All you care about is protecting your assets, not creating a family. I couldn't believe my ears. Sean, that's not true. I'm protecting my children, their future. I want all of us to have stability. Isn't that important? He stood up, turning away from me. Your children, your company. But what about my daughter? You don't even want to help her like you promised. Yes, you offered money for her education and a car, but that's not what she truly needs. I froze, feeling the anger rising within me. What else, Sean? I've already offered more than I should have. I'm not obligated to share my company or set up a fund for her. She has a mother who is already taking care of her needs. Why are you putting so much pressure on me? He turned around and snapped, because you'll never accept her as part of your family. You'll always put your children first. Those words tore me apart. Of course, my children are important to me. They're young, they depend on me. Your daughter is an adult, she's 18, and she has support from her mother. You know how hard it is for me to manage on my own. You offer nothing for my children. Sean shut down again, as he had been doing for the past few weeks. I decided it was time to put everything in its place. Fine, if you want everything to be fair, then my children should get something from you. Why can't their names be on the land you own? They deserve a future too. He froze, looking at me in surprise. You want me to share my land with your children? That has nothing to do with them. I flinched at his response. How does it not concern them, Sean? You want me to give part of my company to your daughter, but you're not willing to do anything for my children? That's not fair. Anger flashed in his eyes. You're trying to destroy the legacy I'll leave for my daughter. You're putting your interests above everyone else's. I realized that we had gone too far. Everything I tried to explain to him was crashing against a wall of distrust and accusations. He didn't see me, didn't hear me. All that mattered to him was his daughter, and my children had become an obstacle for him. Lowered my head, feeling the weight of the situation bearing down on me. We could no longer understand each other. I had tried to save our love, but now I realized it was fading away. Sean was willing to sacrifice everything for his daughter, and I had to accept that. But at what cost? We sat in silence, neither of us finding words. This was the beginning of the end, and I knew it. After that conversation, something inside me broke. Sean and I could no longer discuss the future without mutual accusations and resentment. Every conversation turned into a battlefield, where there were no winners, only a relationship crumbling deeper and deeper. It was as if we were speaking different languages, and every word, instead of bringing reconciliation, added new wounds. A few days later, Sean sent me a message. It was dry and cold, like all his recent words. We need to talk about your income. I've made some calculations about your company for the coming years, and here's what I think. When I opened the attached file, the blood froze in my veins. Sean had calculated how much money I would earn in the coming years and attached his plan for how he wanted to allocate those funds. His daughter was clearly highlighted in the plan, with a significant portion of my income directed toward her. Felt a wave of anger wash over me. Did he really think he could control my money and my business? Had I ever given him the right to plan my future this way? With that document, I felt that Sean had betrayed me on an even deeper level than I could have imagined. I immediately called him. This time, I wasn't going to hold back. "Sean, what is this document?" I began, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I was boiling. "These are calculations," he answered indifferently, as if it were completely normal. "I thought it would help us better understand how we can share financial responsibility." Financial responsibility. My voice trembled with anger. "Are you serious? You calculated how much I'll earn and decided you have a right to that money." Sean, as usual, remained calm, which only fueled my anger further. "I just want my daughter to be protected. You promised to help her, but your offers don't cover what she needs. She's grown now, and she needs more than just money for education and a car." I couldn't take it anymore. "Your daughter is not my responsibility, Sean. I already agreed to help her, even though I don't have to. She has a mother, she has you. Why do you think I should finance her future?" His tone became even colder. "Because we're going to get married. She's part of my life, and that means she should be part of yours too." Part of my life. I laughed bitterly. "But what are you doing for my children, Sean? Why don't you offer them the same support? Why aren't you willing to help me the way I'm willing to help your daughter?" He was silent. The silence spoke volumes. He had never considered that my children also needed his support. For him, it was only about his own legacy, his daughter, and everything else didn't matter. "I don't see you offering anything for my children," I continued, feeling the pain growing in my chest. "They deserve a future too. Why can't their names be on your land? Why can't they be part of your legacy?" Sean looked stunned by my words. He hadn't expected me to demand something for my children. "You're trying to destroy the legacy I'll leave for my daughter," he finally said. "That's not fair. She won't get even half of what you'll leave for your children." I looked at him, trying to understand how we had come to this. We were two people who once loved each other, but now we were standing on opposite sides, with a chasm between us. "I never asked you to destroy anything for your daughter, Sean," I said quietly. "I just want us to be fair. But if you're not willing to support my children the way I'm willing to support your daughter, then maybe we shouldn't be talking about the future at all." His face twisted in anger. "You've always put your children first. Now you're just showing who you really are. Greedy and selfish." Those words hurt more than anything he had said before. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but I forced myself to hold them back. I couldn't let him see my weakness. He was no longer the man I loved. After that conversation, it became clear we were on the brink of a complete breakup. Sean had become a stranger, and every day with him felt like a new challenge. We barely spoke, and when we did, it always ended in mutual accusations and hurtful words. It pained me to see the person I once considered my support and rock become so cold and indifferent. One evening, after an especially hard day, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, lost in my thoughts. Suddenly, a message came from Sean. It wasn't just another set of dry phrases, but a long and sharp letter in which he accused me of always seeing his daughter as different, of never accepting her as my own. He called me a hypocrite, hiding my true feelings, and reproached me for supposedly building our life together around my children and interests. Every word of his pierced me like a knife. I reread the message several times, unable to believe that the person who once said he loved me could act so cruelly. How could he think that? Hadn't I shown through my care that his daughter was important to me? I had always tried to be fair. I had agreed to many concessions to help her, even though I wasn't obligated to do so. But for Sean, it wasn't enough. I couldn't hold back and dialed his number. The conversation started in raised voices. "How can you say such things?" I began, unable to contain my anger. "I've always tried to support your daughter. I offered the help I could give. Why do you think I'm against her?" Sean wasn't backing down. "You never accepted her, Lily. To you, she was always a stranger. You didn't even try to make her feel part of our family." "A stranger?" I almost shouted. "I offered her money for education, a car, housing. I was willing to help her more than I had to. But I'm not obligated to create a fund for her or share what I built for my children." Sean launched into accusations again. "You're just greedy, Lily. You only think about your children. You never saw us as one family. You've always put a wall between us." Those words were the last straw. I felt my strength draining away. Something inside me, something I had been trying to hold onto for so long, finally gave way. But now it seemed pointless. We couldn't talk anymore, couldn't understand each other. Every word we said turned into a new blow. "You never thought about my children, Sean," I replied coldly, feeling the tightness in my chest. "You never offered them anything. All you want is for me to give your daughter part of my company. But what have you done for my children?" "Nothing." He was silent, and the silence was deafening. We were back on opposite sides, and now I knew that the gap between us could never be bridged. Sean didn't see me, didn't hear me. All that mattered to him was his legacy, his daughter, and everything else had become irrelevant. "I think we can't continue anymore," I finally said, realizing that this was the end. "You don't see me, and you don't want to. You're ready to give everything for your daughter, and I understand that. But I can't and won't sacrifice my future and the future of my children for you." He sighed and seemed about to say something, but instead just shook his head. "Maybe you're right," he said dryly. "Maybe this was all a mistake." Those words hurt more than anything before. A mistake, that's what he called everything we had. Everything we went through. All the feelings I had invested in our relationship, all the hopes and dreams. All of it was now just a mistake to him. I couldn't take it anymore. "If that's how you feel, Sean, then maybe we really shouldn't continue. I don't see the point in this relationship anymore." He just nodded, and we hung up. I was left alone in the silence of our once cozy, but now empty apartment. Everything that had once been between us was gone. Weeks passed after that fateful conversation. Sean and I no longer spoke. I made the decision to break off our engagement, although it was much harder than I expected. On one hand, it was a relief. I no longer had to fight every day for the right to be heard, for my children's future, for myself. But on the other hand, I felt an emptiness filling my heart. It seemed like everything I had built, not only in business but also in my personal life, had collapsed. When I returned Sean's ring, he looked at me with such coldness, as if all the years we had been together meant nothing to him. He didn't say a word, didn't try to stop me, didn't take a single step toward me. His gaze was full of disappointment and bitterness, but at the same time, complete indifference. As if I had been just a chapter in his life that he was ready to close without regret, returned home, feeling the tears welling up in my eyes. I tried to be strong, but my heart was breaking with pain. After all, I once loved him. I loved him in a way I never thought I could love again after all the disappointments of the past. Sean had been everything to me, my rock, my support, my friend. I had built a future with him, believing that we could create something real. But now that future turned out to be just an illusion. A few days passed, and I saw another message from him. Opening it, I felt that familiar weight in my chest. He wasn't asking for forgiveness, nor was he trying to make amends. His words were filled with coldness and sarcasm. "Thank you for showing your true face," he wrote. "Now I know who you really are. You never loved my daughter, which means you never loved me either. I was wrong about you. I hope you find someone who is willing to live in your selfish world." I reread those lines several times, feeling the pain sink deeper. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but I couldn't stop them. His words hit me in the heart. I had tried to be good to everyone. I had tried to care for his daughter even though I didn't have to. I had sacrificed my own interests for him, for his family. But for Sean, it wasn't enough. I would always be, in his eyes, a stranger, a selfish woman who put her children above his. But what could I do? My children were my life, and I couldn't act otherwise. I realized that perhaps I had indeed focused too much on my responsibilities to them. But wasn't that normal for a mother? I had tried to be fair, tried to find compromises, but all of it turned out to be insufficient, lost not only Sean but also my faith in the possibility of creating something together. I had always been just a temporary companion to him, and he showed me that with his coldness and indifference. When I closed the message, I knew that was the final point. There was no going back. I accepted his words, even though they cut me like a blade. Sean was right about one thing: I had shown my true face. I could no longer be the woman he wanted me to be. I could no longer adjust to his demands and sacrifice my future for his illusions. And so, sitting in the silence of my apartment, I finally allowed myself to cry. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I didn't try to stop them. This was the end of a chapter, the end of a story I had so desperately wanted to have a happy ending. But instead, I was left alone, with a broken heart and the feeling that everything I had built had crumbled before my eyes. The world around me kept going, but for me, everything had changed. I was no longer the woman who hoped for a bright future with the man she loved. I had become stronger, but the price for that strength was too high. A few more days passed, and I returned to my work and my life. Life didn't stand still, and I had to keep moving forward. But every time I saw Sean's name on my phone, or heard his voice in my memories, the pain came rushing back. I knew that one day it would pass, but for now, all I could do was survive it. This breakup taught me a lot. I realized that you can't sacrifice your principles, your loved ones, for someone else's expectations. I realized that sometimes love isn't about uniting, but about breaking apart. But most importantly, I realized that even after the deepest pain, you can find the strength to keep living, even when it feels like the world around you is falling apart. Sean was a part of my life, but now he was in the past. And I, despite all my wounds, managed to move forward. But I'll never forget this lesson. Trust can be destroyed in a moment, and rebuilding it will take a lifetime. Thank you for listening to this story. Love is not always a path to a happy ending, and sometimes it's a series of difficult decisions and tragic outcomes. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is very important to the author. And if you have your own stories to share, email us at the address listed in the video description. Your stories might be heard. See you in the next tales.